Hi everybody, and welcome to Garden Style. So today I'm going to be covering small plants for narrow spaces. For some of you who have been following me recently, in my last video I was getting ready to plant a brand new garden bed along the side of my house, which I will give you a picture of here in just a sec. And today, since I have the basic plants, or what I call their foundation plants, put in, I wanted to cover some of the species that I picked and why I picked them, mostly because they will stay narrow and small, because my garden bed is sitting right next to a main pathway that's going to be going out to the backyard. So the very first plant I want to cover with you will be coming up here in just a minute. But before I get to that, I wanted to thank all of the fantastic subscribers. I let you know about my bad reaction to the Moderna vaccine in my last video. I'm doing much better now. Still got a slight case of vertigo, but much better than I was last time. And I just received so many fantastic comments and well wishes, and it just reassures me that the garden group, or those folks who are interested in gardening, is just a fantastic community to be a part of. Some of the nicest people I have ever met, and I have heard from people all around the world. And I just wanted to personally thank all of you for your well wishes. It was really good to hear, and may have helped in my speedy recovery. So I'm back at it again, finally getting out into the garden. Things have calmed down a little bit at the nursery. We're getting in towards the middle of June. In fact, today, as I'm filming this, it is summer solstice and Father's Day. So I want to wish a happy Father's Day to all you fantastic dads out there. And we are on the verge of a major heat wave. And I know there's a lot of you all across the country who are already suffering from some very high temperatures, very high heat, and it makes gardening a little difficult. Just about all you can do is just keep things watered and hope it will pass very soon. We're about to enter our own heat wave up here in the Northwest, and to us a heat wave is when we get into the mid-80s to the lower 90s, and that's exactly where we're headed over the next couple of days. In fact, today it should probably hit 85. And by tomorrow, we're definitely well into the low 90s. So water, 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 water is all we live for. All right, you guys, so let's talk about some small plants in narrow spaces. Okay, so we're going to talk about this particular specimen first. I have covered this specimen before in previous videos, but this is an Arborvitae evergreen, and it is called Forever Goldie. I picked it because of its bright foliage that it has. It will stay evergreen, and they are extremely hardy from about zones 4 to zone 9, and they do very, very well. But I picked it for its size. This little guy can get up to about 12 feet high, which is no big deal because I am on the long side of the house here. There's a lot of wall space there, but he only gets about 2 to 3 feet wide. So fantastic. And as I back up, you're going to see this bed that I finally got some of the foundational plants into. There's my imaginary line. I'm going to be putting in the trim this afternoon, as well as some mulch, and then I can get into a few extra perennials that are going to go in this bed until everything can grow in. I decided on perennials just because I can easily move them later if I find things are getting a little too tight in this bed. But for now, this is where everyone should start when you're planting a new bed. Get those foundational plants in that are there year-round, that stay evergreen. And I'll go over the 2 or 3 specimens I have in here, just to let you know about their size and why I chose them. So yes, this very first one is Forever Goldie, Arborvitae, and then this next one, right down here, right there, you can kind of see the blooms on it. This is a very low growing shrub, and this is called Red Dream Escallonia. It will get about 2 feet high by 2 feet wide, so it is perfect in the front of a very narrow area so that it's not coming out into the pathway. It'll stay very compact. It has beautiful dark green glossy leaves, and as you can see, it's starting to bloom. So it starts to get these red flowers on it during the summer. Perfect. So it'll give me some color as well. It of course requires full sun. Now most of this bed will get about 5 to 6 hours of sun before it finally dives into the shade, and that will be just perfect for some of these specimens to start to grow in. But you notice that I have them moved away from the foundation here a little bit because I have another plan that I'm going to cover with you here in just a moment. But yeah, this is a Red Dream Escallonia. It is hardy from zones 5 to zone 9, so it can withstand the cold. And the neat thing is you rarely have to trim these unless you see them kind of getting a little bit leggy. But for the most part, they pretty much take care of themselves. But yeah, I was happy to see some buds getting started on this plant. But I'll back up here a little bit and you can see how it sits in comparison to where I put some of the other shrubs. Yeah, so I'm getting excited. It has taken me several years to finally get to this point. But I'm finally getting to that point. Now here, you'll notice this long, narrow shrub right here. And this is called a sky pencil Japanese holly, or an Ilex crenata. And sky pencil is its name, and it kind of fits the name. It of course requires at least 5 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. Its average size is about 6 to 8 feet tall, and it'll get about 2 to 3 feet wide. So again, it stays long and narrow, and it'll put on some height up against the wall here. So that's the reason I chose that one, and of course evergreen, as any foundation plant should be, because I'll be looking at them all year round. And what I'll start to do starting next spring, I just want them to get their roots in, is I may start to trim just a few of the edges there at the top, just to help it continue to stay compact as it grows taller. Seems to be the ticket for that. But that's the reason I chose that. So as I am walking through the gate here, see that? Going towards the backyard, none of these plants are going to be coming out to the pathway and getting obnoxious. So that was my reason for that. And I thought I'd just take a quick picture of a bird bath that I put in here. Isn't he cool? This is a bird bath that we carry at the nursery. It's by Mozzarella, and they make all kinds of fantastic fountains and bird baths, and this was just really unique. It looks very natural, and I just like the face on it. So he's kind of taken the centerpiece here in the middle of this garden, and right up above I have some artwork, which now I'm going to have to bring down the wall a little bit so it's a little closer to what's going on down here in the middle. But a little surprise for you, when you're creating narrow beds, it's always a good idea to also think vertical. And that is why I chose this particular plant. And let me get to a point where I can sit down and talk about this great little plant. Okay, so this is actually a vine. It's a Chilean potato vine. Or, if you want the botanical name for it, it's a Solanum, crispum, glasnevin. And this is a very unique plant. This is semi-evergreen here in zone 8. It's actually hardy from zone 8 to zone 11, so it actually prefers warmer climates. But I am putting this on a west-facing wall, so it'll be super happy being out in the full sun. But the reason I chose this plant is once it starts blooming here in June, it will continue to keep sending up blooms throughout the rest of the summer. So I can count on this thing to give me some color going up the wall as opposed to going out. So what I intend to do is put in 2 trellises, one on either side of the bird bath, or I may decide on an obelisk. That's where you guys kick in. Let me know, what would you like to see? An obelisk going into this garden, or would you rather see a trellis going up the wall? Just give me some votes and that'll help me decide, because I'm still kind of on the fence as to which way I want to go. The obelisk will sit independently in the garden, whereas a trellis will have to be fixed to the side of the house, and it'll have to be fixed in such a way to where I can remove them later when I go to repaint. So that's my only issue with growing vines up the side of a house wall, is you got to make sure you can remove the trellis and the vines so you can get in there and paint. But there's a neat, tricky way that you can do that. So if I decide to go with a trellis, I'll show you how I go about doing that, so that you can have vines up against a real big blank wall like this without having to worry about painting the wall later. So anyway, back to this great little Chilean potato vine. That's where they come from, is Chile. And we started carrying them there at the nursery just because I discovered that they continue to keep blooming all summer long. And they're a very fast grower. They can put on 2 to 3 feet in 1 year and just keep blooming and blooming. They're semi-evergreen up here in Washington, which is where I live, in Zone 8. So any climates that are a little colder than that, it may not do as well. You may have to treat it more as an annual than you do as a perennial. But whenever you're putting in a brand new bed, you're always taking at least 3 steps before it's complete. The very first step, of course, is putting in your foundational plants. Second step, you can start filling in with your perennials. And then the third step, fill in with some annuals if you still have some holes left that you feel you need more color in. So those are the steps I'm taking at this point. Phase 1 is complete, and of course I will follow up in my next video and start going over some perennials that I'm going to put in here. Some fantastic perennials that can put up with the heat, because this wall gets hot during the afternoons before it finally dives into the shade. And some that also stay small, so they aren't going to take over and end up coming out into the path to where I'm constantly having to cut them back and maintain them. So there you go. There's a few small plants. They don't get too vigorous in a real narrow area. And I'll list some more plants down in the description box down below, just to give you some more ideas as to what you can use that is narrow, tall, doesn't get too wide, doesn't get too big. It's not going to end up growing into all the other plants. The hardest part for me is getting used to a brand new bed that looks kind of empty. But I also know I have to allow some time, at least a year or 2, for everything to start to grow in and look a little more natural. So yeah, my next video I'll show you the follow-up to this and go over some new perennials with you. Okay, of course if you have any questions at all, you can certainly put those in the comment box down below, or you can get a hold of me at gardenstyleinwest@gmail.com. And don't forget, any of these plants you can get at our nursery at sunnycrestnursery.com. We are also located in Lakebay, Washington, so for those of you who are local, by all means you can drop in. We don't ship out of state or out of town. We don't quite have the facilities for that. But nevertheless, we carry those types of plants for the locals who like to come in and take a look. All right, so here we go. We're stepping into summer, some of the longest days of the year. I hope everything's going well for you. And happy summer solstice. And we'll talk soon. Bye for now.